What's up, everybody? Good morning. And for some of you, good afternoon or good evening, even getting close to evening for my good friend Chris Sweeney, coming to us from the great place of London, England right now. Chris is the head of EMEA Professional Services, is whip smart, and is real good. We're just glad you're here. Chris, how are you, my friend?
Doing really well, thank you. Pleased to be here, and excited for our conversation today.
And come on, everyone. I mean, that accent. Chris went from being really smart to being like 500 times smarter just because his accent is so good. So good. Okay, enough of me talking about how cool Chris is, but he is cool. I want to dig right in. Chris and team have built some really cool solutions. Remember, as we talk about Domo today, there's really a few key pieces. One, we help you build your data foundation inside of your cloud data platform of choice, whether that is Snowflake, Databricks, Google, Dremio, the list goes on and on and on. From there is where it gets really fun for us. So we're able to help you activate that data, whether that's through building apps, agents, workflows, or whatever else it is that you need to be able to help your users be successful. From there, we help you actually distribute it. So if that is an app on your CEO's phone, if that's a website where your partners and customers can access it, whatever it is, we help you distribute it. But the most important is it is all governed, safe, secure in a way that IT doesn't have to be worried about what is Chris building over there. It's all auditable. We can see exactly what's happened. So I'm excited to put that into context and for Chris to be able to show you today, what is it he's built? Why has he built it? And really excited to see how is it that you're using AI to be able to make all things possible. So Chris, give us your thoughts. What are you doing?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think today, we've seen some great examples already from Cassidy showing how AI massively reduces development time, and from Riley talking about the headless organization and changes to the way we might all be working in the future. I think today I want to hone in on, what is our process for how do we bring that to life for people? So in real life production scenarios. And I really enjoyed a quote from Ben Scheid on this recently, where he said, it's good to know the art of the possible, but it's better to know the art of the possible and then make it possible. So I think
Ben Scheid for the win. Ben Scheid's dropping knowledge on us always.
So yeah, with that context in mind, I think what I'm going to talk to today is, how do we bring this to life? And I'm going to talk through a couple of examples that are focused on procurement, which is a space I actually used to work in a previous role. And then, show some applications that bring it to life a little bit.
Okay, Chris. So knowing that not everybody who is watching this is a procurement person, break it down. Tell me like I'm three. What on earth does procurement do?
Yeah, and I think that's part of the problem, that the scope of the role has grown so massively over the years. So starting at the very beginning, it's all about purchasing goods, right? But for that, it's understanding the needs of the business, capturing those requirements, going out and finding suppliers who offer that, running RFPs with them, analyzing the results, signing a contract, managing those contracts. So there's a huge amount that's in that role. And I think it's just sort of grown over time.
Interesting. Okay, walk me through the process. What is it you've done and why have you done
it? Yeah. So I think the first thing all starts with, capturing requirements. So in my mind, there's four things you need to create a successful agentic solution and build an application like this. I think the first is, identifying the problem. So it sounds simple, but, businesses have lots of problems. So it's about writing those problems down, quantifying them, and really finding those quick wins so we know which problem to begin with. And then the second thing is really understanding that problem. So in the world of AI, context is king. So the more context we can have, really deep context, understanding of the business, the logic, those edge cases that exist, we need to capture all of that so that whatever we build manages all of those different edge cases that we've got. I think the third then is being able to access and understand the data that we're going to use to help answer or solve that problem. And as you know, that's the foundation of what Domo does. And then the fourth is the technical capability to go and actually build a solution like that. And I think what's interesting is with the advent of AI, that technical barrier has dropped so much that previously those four areas were each handled by a different person. But now all of those things can be handled by one person if they've got that domain knowledge and they've got the willingness to lean in and use these tools.
So Chris, recapping, I was furiously taking notes over here just in case someone's like, is Mark playing solitaire again? No, I'm not. I'm taking notes. So 4 things that we feel like any of our customers or anybody who's building agentic solutions, they've got to be able to ID the problem. They've got to be able, whoa.
Bless you.
Holy cow, excuse me, everyone. They've got to be able to understand the problem and get the context for the problem. Mm-hmm. They've got to then be able to access and understand all of that data to be able to solve the problem. And then they have to have the technical capabilities to be able to go out and actually build the solution that takes care of all those things, right?
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly that. So I think then, recipe really becomes, it's understand that problem, give the context to AI to accelerate that development, and then do that all on a platform that can handle the security, the governance, the infrastructure underneath. And when you do that, you mentioned Jake Heaps before, and I think it's a great example, right, of someone who has that domain expertise, the willingness to learn those tools and use them. And, those are the people that are going to fly. And all I would say now is, building fast now is easy, but I think, building the right thing, that's what's becoming harder.
Yeah, I love that. And it's interesting, Chris, to building fast is easy. I mean, you can go and do that with your vibe coding solution du jour right now.
Exactly.
But that's not the key. The key is not, can I go and build fast? No, can you build things that are going to be impactful and most importantly, governed and safe and secure, where you can actually see, oh shoot, are we sharing something that shouldn't be shared? Like that is a recipe for disaster if you don't have a governed platform that is helping you to be able to actually build, activate, and distribute these solutions.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. And we want to take that trouble away from people, right? We want to let those people who have that domain knowledge just focus on building useful tools and not have to worry about security, governance, authentication, scaling. Just focus on building the solution that's going to solve the problem.
I love that. Okay, where do we go from here, Chris?
Perfect. So I think now maybe I'll talk a little bit around procurement specifically and give a kind of a bit of background on what we're going to talk about there.
Love it.
So I think every company does procurement. So whether they have a person with this specific title or not, every single company is buying goods, buying services in order to run their business. But I think there's a huge gap at the minute between the data that exists in procurement and the decisions and actions that are then taken on top of it. And then I think from a technology standpoint, if I could sort of simplify the current state of play within the procurement technology landscape, I think at the minute there's broadly 3 options. So the first is you buy a big procure-to-pay platform. So procure-to-pay just means it's one platform that manages everything that we spoke about at the start of finding the item, purchasing it, buying it. They can be great, but they're often overkill for smaller teams. So they're expensive, there's too many modules, it comes with long implementation times, and they really need like 5% of that functionality. So it doesn't work for everyone. I think the second option then is point solutions. Right. So rather than buying one big platform, I buy one tool that does contract management. I buy another tool that does spend analytics. Buy another tool that does RFP analysis, which works. But the immediate problem there is you end up with this SaaS sprawl where I've now got 5 vendors, 5 contracts, 5 admins to manage all of these different things. So that doesn't work either. And then the final option I see right at the minute is Excel. People managing things in Excel. Lots of companies do it. The real issue there is, it's governance, it's scale, and it's error prone. So I think what I want to try and hopefully present today is, there is a fourth option. And, I think that option is, build the solution that you want and tailor it to exactly what you need it to do. So simplify this complex solution so you're not buying tools that have functionality you don't need. But doing it in a platform like Domo means that every app lives in one place and can connect. So we'll show some examples later of how the different apps can connect together. And I guess to sort of use a procurement term, this is a decision of build versus buy in software. And I think for the last 20 years, the default has just been buy, and it's been SaaS. And that's been the default decision for 99% of people. But with the evolution of AI and the speed and lowest cost of development, that's no longer a given. That build option is there. But as we've said, to make that possible, it has to be controlled, it has to be secured, it has to be governed. And that's what Domo gives you out of that box, is that environment to build in without having to worry about those things.
I love it. Chris, this is exciting. Where to? Where do we go?
Perfect. All right. Well, I think we're ready then to show some examples of what we built.
Let's do it.
If you don't mind bringing up the screen, we're going to start by showing an example of what we call the Procurement Intelligence app. So this is built for procurement teams, or also those teams without a procurement team, right? A finance or operations team that know that they're spending money, but have no visibility what they're spending it on, or if they're getting value from what they're spending it on. So set the scene. This app has two sides to it. So an admin side, which is, as it sounds, for an admin, just kind of a one-time setup. I'm going to show a couple of steps in here that leverage AI just to show some examples. And then the Insights tab, which is for the everyday user to, as it sounds, get the insights out of the data. So the first tab I'm going to show you is data cleaning. So really common problem in procurement is that you get your data, but all of your suppliers are not necessarily called the same thing. When you're getting data from accounts payable and purchase orders and invoices and contracts, the supplier names are not aligned. And that sounds like a simple problem, but it becomes a really big problem when you're trying to answer the question of, how much am I spending with Baker? How much am I spending with Hunter? So what this app does is look through all the data, pulls out all the suppliers, and automatically suggests a sort of a cleaning of that data for you. And this is where that human in the loop comes in, right? So I can choose whether I accept or decline this. I can look at my full list and I can edit any supplier name I want. So we're giving people the chance to kind of edit or correct what the AI has done. The second part of this app is around defining a taxonomy. So a taxonomy is one of the most crucial things to have in procurement. And essentially it is your grouping of, what am I buying? The reason it's so important is because we need to create this taxonomy that's market facing, so that when I want to go to market to buy, widgets, that I have all my widgets together in one category, so I can take that, go to market, and that will align to the market that can then bid on those goods or services. So what we do is give the ability for the users to generate that with AI. So it allows them to fill in some basic information about their company. So what industry and sub-industry are they in? What geography? How big are they? And it will combine that with looking at their actual spend data. So looking at the PO description, invoice descriptions, in order to generate a taxonomy that is specific to them, and again is editable. So the results will be shown here. We go down to 3 levels, and the user has the ability to come and edit, add, change any of this around. Once this is complete, behind the scenes, that's where we kick off our kind of first full agents that are running. So it's going to do 2 things. One, it's going to then go and take our spend data, and for every single line in our spend data, it's going to go and categorize that against the taxonomy that we've just generated. And once that's complete, it's then going to go look at each of those categories to provide an overall summary of what's happening in that category, and then some savings opportunities within there. And that's what I'll show a little bit later on.
Very cool.
So now we've covered the admin side. We'll take a look at the insight side of this. So the first tab is the spend overview. So this is a more standard sort of dashboard look and feel. It's spend analytics. I think what's quite nice about this is, it gives us the ability to create visualizations that are, again, specific to procurement. So the spend tree visual here is, again, really common in the procurement space, and allows you to see really quickly, what are all my different categories, subcategories, what's my total spend in that category, how many suppliers do I have in there? So we can get that kind of overall view of the spend. But I think where the real magic starts to happen is when we then start to look at the category overview. So this page gives me a complete overview of every of my level 2 categories that are in the spend, and also allows us to automatically filter for categories that we see opportunities or risks. So an opportunity might be that I have a really long tail of suppliers in a given category, and I've got an opportunity to consolidate that and get better pricing through consolidating that volume. Or a risk might be that I've got a category that only has a single supplier. So if anything goes wrong in my supply chain, and I think we know a lot of things are happening in the world right now that can disrupt supply chains pretty quickly. So I need to do something about that and have a plan in place either way.
Love it.
So if we jump into a specific category, what we'll see is we get a more detailed breakdown of exactly what's happening in this category. So we get specific stats, total number of suppliers. We see how concentrated our spend is with our top suppliers. We can see kind of our list of top suppliers and how many of our different sites are they serving. And then this is where we also start to see those AI insights being brought up. So the first is what we're seeing. So we get a really succinct overview of that category. So for someone who's not familiar with what this category is, what it's for, we can get a quick view of that. And I think the really nice bit here is the savings plays that it generates. So for each category, we're going to generate between 3 and 4 different savings plays. So this is the AI looking at the specific spend of our company, looking at all the options and suggesting to us actions that we can take to go and reduce our spend. And this is broken down into what is the opportunity, why would we suggest this? So backed up by evidence from your specific data to explain why we're suggesting this, and what is the impact of this could be. And when we talk about human in the loop, I guess this is one of the first places, again, that we allow the user to come and accept or reject these category plays. So we mentioned at the start that context is king, and as much as we try to capture all that context, AI might suggest consolidating spend that sits with one of our suppliers, but our category manager knows that actually that specific part is a really specialist part that's been with that supplier for 3 years, and it's going to cost hundreds of thousands to move it. The category manager knows that, but the AI doesn't. So we give the user the ability to accept or reject the ones that make sense for them.
Chris, walk us through from a procurement perspective. I mean, if you're a small business, this isn't as big of a deal probably. But I mean, even 5, 10, 20, 50, 100, 500 billion dollar company has tens, 20s, hundreds, thousands of different contracts like this, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I think, even smaller organizations, I would say, this is still important. With smaller organizations, that's typically where they don't have a procurement team, right? So they will never have seen a view of their spend like this. Each department head will know who their suppliers are and who their key suppliers are, but no one's ever seen this complete global view of the spend. But you're right, the big suppliers equally become so important. Their spend is so big. Each category has, kind of hundreds of suppliers, hundreds of contracts. So I think in both scenarios, this view becomes really important. Cool.
Okay, where do we go from here?
Perfect. Final part of this one, we then provide this kind of overview page as well. So as a procurement manager or as a finance manager, I can come in and see, what are all those savings plays that we've accepted and that are in the works. So we can come in here, and what's really nice is we can, again, using Domo's foundational tools of analyzing data, we can come in and sort of track live, like how is this initiative going? So we can see a snapshot of the data, what the data looked like before we accepted this strategy, and what's our data currently looking like now. So now we're 200 days past accepting it, and again we can have AI support us here and produce an analysis of that to let us know if it looks like we're on track or if we're behind.
Chris, there has to be a pretty enormous time savings alone. Not set aside the monetary piece, which could be very significant. Just time savings has to be pretty significant, right?
Huge. Yeah. I'm talking from experience here. This process that I've just walked you through in this application, this used to take us 2 to 3 months to get all that data, to manually clean it, to manually categorize it, to look at each category and create the suggested savings strategies. This took 3 months. This is consolidated down to 1 to 2 weeks. And that 1 to 2 weeks is including, getting the data, cleaning it, running it through this. So it's a huge, huge time saving.
That's amazing. Cool. What next, my friend?
Perfect. So I think what we'll do now is shift over and look at another solution that we've built around contract management this time.
Love it.
So I mentioned at the start, one of the benefits of kind of building these solutions in Domo is this ability to house everything in one place. So, my spend intelligence app is in Domo, my contract management is in Domo. And what that means as well is that as I'm going to add in my contracts, it allows me to use the same taxonomy that I've just created. So my actual spend data is being categorized against the same categories, but now so are my contracts. So we're creating that kind of thread between everything that we're doing. So I'm going to kick off the uploading of a contract here, and we'll come back to this in a minute once it's processed, but just to kind of walk you through the rest of the app. So we start with an overview of all of our contracts. So, and bucketed into those times that they expire. So we can really quickly see, what are the ones that we need to focus on. We then get our full list of contracts. So we can go in and look at any specific contract. And what we've done with the AI is kind of accelerate the process of, creating contract summaries, pulling out key information from this contract, extracting key fields from the contract, which again are editable. So again, we know AI is not perfect. There's things that it could miss, things that the human might want to add. So we give the ability to do that. And what's really nice as well is we provide this quality review. So if I can skip here to this template screen, what we give the user the ability to do is upload a best practice contract, because AI can do so much in terms of just analyzing a contract, but a contract for manufacturing looks completely different to a contract for financial services, which looks completely different to a contract for HR, for example. So we give you the ability to kind of upload your best practice. So when it's doing that analysis, it's going to analyze against that best practice template and pull out points that are specific to your templates, which is really nice. So we'll see those, and again, it will rank them as kind of critical issues, with clear explanation of what that gap is and a recommendation for how that can be resolved.
So Chris, this is interesting. You've probably seen the sales ops agent that we've been talking about quite a bit internally. And we've built an agent to help any kind of VP of sales or sales director or sales manager or CRO even to be able to help manage their business by looking at individual deals and seeing one of the things that can help them do is tells them the next best action. If you're running a book of 10, 20, 30, 40, 100 different potential deals, it's easy to get sidetracked on what you might be like, oh, well, that's the best place for me to go next. But you might not be looking at the whole story. What this app or agent in your case is doing is it's telling you, hey, it's looking through here's the 50 contracts we have to review right now. Guess what? This one is the most critical because of this thing. This is the next best action. It feels very similar to the sales ops agent specific for procurement, but even for legal people, anyone just trying to figure out where's the best place for me to spend my time with a contract, right?
Exactly that. And I think, you said it really nicely there as well, because I think what's nice about it as well is it doesn't even know that it's an agent, right? We're building these solutions that just feel so seamless that, yes, behind the scenes, we've got agents that are running, analyzing these contracts, extracting key fields, but for the end user, they don't even need to know that. They're just seeing the results, getting that next best action, and it just feels integrated into the way they work day to day.
I love it. Okay, Chris, where do we go?
So maybe we'll switch back and just have a quick look at what that process looked like. So, we can see now it's pulling that contract, it's extracted all those key fields, it's given me the option to edit anything I want. You can see here another example of this linking between apps is it's compared the supplier name to my existing list of suppliers. In this case, it said, hey, I can't find an existing supplier. Do you want to go and create a new record in your master supplier base? For now, I'll just go ahead and save changes. And then behind the scenes now, what that's going to do is that analysis that we were just looking at of comparing it to kind of best practice. We provide key dates, so a quick overview of the contract and pulling out any key dates in the contracts like midpoint reviews. If you've got contracts that auto-renew, highlighting those. And again, a really nice kind of seamless integration of AI is, creating these alerts automatically with AI. So going through and, putting an alert in 30 days before the contract's due for renewal to remind you that, hey, you need to come in and look at this and do something about it. And I think another point to make here is, all of this is possible because we're using kind of Domo's foundational technology under the hood. So, when I come in and upload this contract, what's happening behind the scenes is that's going into our document storage for unstructured data. And the benefit of that is, all those complexities of, vectorizing unstructured documents to be able to do RAG, I don't need to worry about that. It gets uploaded to documents, that's automatically applied, and I can just start leveraging those immediately in the app without having to deal with all of that. So I think the reason this works, the reason it scales, and the reason we can do this in production environments is because we're building on top of all these existing tools in Domo that we just don't have to worry about.
It's amazing. I mean, you think of for any kind of procurement team, and I'll extend it. I mean, I see so many really cool legal use cases here as well. To be able to get instant visibility to risk exposure, upcoming renewals, gaps that are against some kind of best practice, like this solves all of those problems.
Yeah, exactly. And I think you're right. It extends beyond procurement.
Awesome. Okay, Chris, wrap us up. What do you want everybody to know? What else should we show them?
I think so. From a demo point of view, I think that's it. I would say we've picked 2 examples here, right? We've built other applications for procurement for guided buying, so it allows users to come in and say, hey, I need to buy a new computer monitor. I don't want to go and read the procurement document that's 30 pages long to understand what I'm supposed to do. So let's just build that into an application where the user just searches for it and it guides them down the right path. So we've only got 30 minutes today. I can't show all of them, but I think I just want to get across, anything is possible in the platform, and the benefits of having it all in one place are just great for procurement.
I love it. Everybody, you heard it here. If you have any kind of legal, procurement, and I could go on, sales, marketing, finance, on and on and on, we have solutions already built, and we can spin something up very, very quickly to be able to activate that data in a safe, secure, and governed way. Don't get stuck. Chris, give me that quote again from Ben Shine.
It's good to know the art of the possible, but it's better to know the art of the possible and then make it possible.
Go make it possible, everybody. That is a great closing. Ben Shine, we're stealing your wisdom. Chris, so glad to have you with us. We will see everybody the next day that we're live. Have a good one.
So.